Hey guys, this is going to be an interesting video today. A couple of people recently have asked me whether we help people to flip properties for a short-term profit, and of course the answer is no, we don't do that. But I wanted to explain why we don't do that, because sometimes people think it's a really easy way of making short-term cash, and it obviously is if you do it right. But there is lots of things to consider when you're considering that model. So the first thing to say is that what is flipping properties? Everyone will have seen Homes Under the Hammer, and so you'll know that you might buy a property for, I don't know, £80,000, spend £20,000 on it, and it's now miraculously worth £180,000. I think most people would realise, hopefully, if you're watching this video, you'll realise that if there is a deal like that, there's probably something wrong with it. There's probably a reason why you can buy it for £80,000, and when you spend £20,000 on it, it's worth 180. And so that should already be putting you off doing those kind of deals. Now, can you buy a property for 80, spend £20,000 on it, and it be worth 110? Yeah, you could, definitely. And if it's worth 110, then you've made £10,000 profit, because 80 plus 20 is 100, and you made £10,000 profit because you sold it for 110. However, we need to obviously take into account the fees and costs. Buying property is quite a cumbersome process. We need to take into account the solicitor's fees, mortgage broker's fees, if you're using a mortgage, the stamp duty, any project management fees on the refurbishment that you've got to pay, any sourcing fees. So if you've got to pay our fees, for example, that will wipe out your cost. All of those costs put together, they'll wipe out your profit. And then also on the sell side, that's on the buy side, and then on the sell side, you've got to pay some fees as well. You've got to pay the estate agent fees. You've got to pay tax on the profit that you make, if it's over a certain amount. And of course, in the meantime, you've got to hold the property, right? So when you buy it, you've then got to do the refurb for, it might take a month, 2 months, 3 months. In that time, you've got to pay council tax, you've got to pay your gas and electric bills, your water bills. All of those kind of things need to come out of the profit. Now, assuming that you've done your numbers correctly, and I think where this mentality comes from, by the way, is in London. And most of the people watching this will be from London, so you'll understand what I mean. You buy a house, it might be, I don't know, £450,000. You do a extension into the loft or an extension on the back, and it costs you, I don't know, 50 grand to do the extension. So you bought it for 450, you spent 50 grand in the extension, so you're in for 500. Even with all the costs and stuff, you're in for a 525 or something like that. And the value of the property is now 550. So you made yourself 25,000, but you made yourself 25,000 on an initial outlay of 525. So 25,000 on 525, you've made 5% or thereabouts, maybe less than that. And it's taken you probably the best part of a year, because extensions don't happen overnight, purchasing doesn't happen overnight. It takes a long time to do that. And then, of course, you made your profit, you pay tax on your profit, and then you've got to go and do it all again tomorrow. You've got to do it all again to make the other 5%. And every year, if you do it one a year, you'll make 5% every year, and that's fine. The reason why we avoid that is because that only works if the value increases. And if the market, if everything in the market in a year from now is exactly the same as today, then you can make your assumptions based on today's market. But if the market changes, as it very well does, and usually unexpectedly as well, then it's much more difficult for you to time the market and make a profit. So I'll give you an example. A year ago, if you had asked anybody in the property industry, remember a year ago would have been COVID time, basically, do we think the market's going to go up or down? Most people would have agreed that the market's, we don't know is the answer. It's a bit wobbly. It might decrease, people are on furlough, blah, blah, blah. All these reasons why we think the market might go down. And over the last year, the market has surprised everybody pretty much, and has gone up by easily 10, 12, 15%. I think an average over the country is 10%. So if we had bought... we wouldn't have bought last year, because we would have thought the market's going to go down, so we would have waited until, say, this year to buy. And now we've missed out on that profit. If we say now what's going to happen to the market, let's say we think that the market's going to go up. If we think the market's going to go up in a year from now, if we can be wrong from last year to this year, we can also be wrong from this year to next year. If in a year from now the market has not gone up and it's gone down, then it could very well mean that your £10,000 profit is completely eroded, and you might even make yourself a loss. So for that reason, we don't offer the buy and sell model, the flip model. And what we say to our clients is much better for you to buy and hold long term. Now, does that mean that you can't flip the property? No, it doesn't. There are clients of ours that bought a property in January for £120,000. When they bought it and refurbished it, they spent £10,000 refurbishing it. So 120 plus 10, 130, and it's worth 145. Does that mean that they can flip it and make some profit? They probably can. It's up to them whether that effort they've put into it and the cost they put into it is worthwhile for them making a profit right now, or whether they're going to keep it and make, 6-7% on rental return, plus make another, maybe, I don't know, I can't tell the future, but let's just say an average of 6-7% on capital return every year. So now you've made 12, 14, 15%, something like that overall return every year. Or you could just make 5% this year and then have the effort of having to do it every single year. Which option do you want? Option number one, you make 5%, but you have to put the effort in every single time, and not to mention you have to take the risk every single time. Option number two, you can buy the property once, refurbish it, rent out for the next 10 years, 20 years, and it will continue to give you the best part of 10, 15% for the next 20 years. It seems like a no-brainer to me. It's exactly what I do. And I think that sort of explains why we don't do that. Final point to mention,